I'm Dr. Jeanette Raymond, psychologist, psychotherapist, relationship expert, and your guru on anger and stress. Today I'm going to tell you how to manage that anger that you've been bottling up for so long when your loved ones take advantage of you, they exploit you, they let you do all the caring in the family, and they just get away with it and they don't feel anything. And I'm going to do it by explaining to you how I helped a client with this. She was a young girl in her early 20s. She was living with her mother, who was ill, old, frail, and she'd been looking after her basically all her life. Her brother had left, got a girlfriend, had never really taken his duty as a carer seriously after his father left when he was 5. And my client, this young girl, had taken up the duties of carer. And initially, as she was growing up, it made her feel good. She was a good person. Everybody thought she was a saint. And she did it all without complaining. And she felt strong. She felt happy. She felt like a martyr. But as she grew older, it was becoming a burden. She couldn't live like this anymore. She wanted her own life. She wanted to go out and see the world and have her own adult experiences. But she couldn't because her brother wasn't helping. Her mother's siblings had always thought that my client was always there, so why should they bother? And it was all on her. And life got more and more restrictive and constrictive, and her anger just couldn't keep being buried anymore. And one day when her brother came to visit their mom, she let it rip. She told him how angry she was that he didn't see her pain, her frustration, her anger, her need to have a life, that he took advantage of her. He allowed her to do all the work and he got away with it, and that she wanted him to suffer the same way. She told her mother how she felt. Her mother just didn't care about her, that she was using her, she was sucking her dry, she was not letting her have a life of her own, and she was stuck in this place, she was trapped, and she wanted both of them to suffer and feel her pain and beg her forgiveness, and any apology that they gave was not enough. It wasn't going to work, and she wanted to really make them suffer in such a way that she felt vindicated and avenged in her place of pain. And of course the family started to crumble because nobody had any bonds that they could use to keep the foundation of the family going. So eventually they came to me for help, and I was able to help my client, and this is the way you can do it, to really express all her pent-up, buried, toxic, venomous sense of being used and abused and exploited, because that's how she felt. She felt used and abused. And her perpetrators were her own family. And so there was shame in expressing it, but they got it eventually after a long, long time. And then I helped them express their powerful, big emotions that enabled them to come together again. There was shame on the part of her mother, of not being a good mother, of not being good enough to keep a husband, of being abandoned, of feeling let down, just like her daughter. Of the son, her brother, feeling guilty, ashamed, bad, no good, that he didn't take care of his mother, that he also abandoned her just like their father had done. That everybody had huge feelings of guilt and shame and resentment and use and exploitation, and it was so big that they were drowning in it and kind of moving apart. And it's only when they put it together and they saw that everybody was drowning in different ways that I helped them create a web, thin pieces of connection, thin pieces of glue. In the beginning it was very fragile, but eventually they made that web that was strong enough to support all of them, but flexible enough for each of them to feel seen and heard, and to kind of create a way that they could all take care of each other without one person having to do it all, and then coming to a point where she was either going to run away and abandon them all or die in the process. Now what you can do is start by writing your feelings down. That's the most important thing if you haven't got a therapist. And you can't really tell anybody else because they're not going to understand. Because after all, you've been doing this such a long time. Why would you suddenly start complaining? Write your feelings down, and it really does calm the fear center, the anger center, because you're putting words to it. That little almond-shaped part of your brain, the amygdala, the emotional center, gets so overworked and heated up and fired up that you can't put your feelings in a coherent way to someone else when you're being triggered by their behaviors. So write it down, and when you do, you're engaging that prefrontal cortex in the front of your brain that brings rationality, that brings judgment, that brings logic, and together you can put them words to it and then express it to your loved ones, and then they can do the same. That's the first step. Second step is to think about having some therapy and helping yourself rid yourself of this toxin and live a life of freedom while still being connected. Please, please, please tell me your experiences. Write them down at the bottom in the comments. Let me know what you thought of the video, what your experiences are. I'll be so happy to help you in any way I can.